Daniel stood at the edge of the spaceport, his hands folded behind his back as he waited. The air smelled faintly of fuel and metal, a common scent in a colony where ships came and went every hour. Around him, people hurried with their cargo, voices mixing with the sound of machines. Daniel tried to calm his nervousness. He told himself this was not a big deal, but his heart said otherwise. He had bought an alien companion, not in the way some people whispered about, but through a legal program managed by the Interstellar Council. Many colonies allowed the exchange of cultural companions, someone from another world who wanted to live with humans and learn their ways. The idea was simple. They would stay, share their culture, and help with daily life. In return, they received food, shelter, and the safety of a new home. Daniel had signed up months ago, not sure what to expect. His work as an engineer was lonely, and though he enjoyed machines, he sometimes wished for another voice in his home. When the council approved his request, he thought he would receive someone shy or uncertain, perhaps even unhappy. After all, who would truly wish to leave their own planet to live with a stranger? The sound of footsteps pulled him from his thoughts. A tall figure in pale clothing walked down the landing ramp, guided by an officer. Her skin had a soft silver glow, like moonlight. Her hair was long and dark, falling over her shoulders like a river of night. She moved with quiet grace, her eyes bright with curiosity. "This is Lyra," the officer said with a polite nod. "She has been assigned to your care." Daniel opened his mouth to greet her but stopped, for he expected her face to carry sadness, perhaps worry. Instead, she smiled, warmly, brightly, as if she had been waiting for this moment with joy. "Hello, Daniel," she said in clear, though accented English. "I am happy to meet you." Daniel blinked. "Happy?" "Yes," she replied without hesitation. Her smile reached her eyes, and she bowed slightly in the way of her people. The officer left them, leaving Daniel standing awkwardly beside her. He rubbed the back of his neck. Welcome to Ardent Colony. It's not Earth, but it's home to me." Her eyes widened as she looked around at the tall towers, the hovering transports, and the people moving freely in every direction. "It is beautiful," she whispered, and her voice carried the weight of wonder. Daniel did not know what to say. Most aliens he had met looked at human colonies with politeness, but also with hidden judgment. Lyra, however, seemed to see everything with joy. They walked together to his small transport. Lyra touched the glass, the seats, the control screen, as though each simple object was a treasure. "You've, never seen these things before?" Daniel asked as he started the engine. "I have seen them," she answered softly, "but never as mine to use. Where I come from, such things are not for everyone." Her words made him curious, but he did not ask too many questions. He did not want to frighten her on the first day. The ride back to his house was quiet but not uncomfortable. Lyra sat straight, watching the colony pass by. The farms, the workshops, the families walking under the artificial sky dome. She looked like a traveler who had at last reached the place she dreamed of. When they reached his home, a modest dwelling built from steel and stone, Daniel hesitated. He felt strange bringing her inside, as though he had to prove his intentions. "This is your home now," he said carefully. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to. You are free here." To his surprise, Lyra's smile grew brighter. "That is all I hoped to hear." He led her through the rooms. She touched the shelves of books, the kitchen tools, and the little garden by the back door. She paused by the window, staring at the open sky beyond the colony dome. Daniel noticed her silence. "You're really okay with this?" he asked finally. "I thought maybe you'd be upset." Lyra turned toward him, her silver skin catching the light. "Upset? No. Where I came from, I had no choice in anything. Here, you have given me choice. Even if it is small, it is more than I ever had." Daniel frowned slightly. "You mean you volunteered for this program?" "Yes," she said simply, and when I saw your name I was glad." "My name?" he asked, confused. "I read about you. An engineer who builds machines to help others. Someone who lives honestly and does not hurt. To me, that sounded like kindness." Daniel's ears grew warm and he turned away, embarrassed. "Well, I just fix machines, that's all." "To me, that is enough," she said, her voice firm. They shared a quiet meal. Daniel cooked simple food: bread, soup, and fruit. Lyra ate carefully at first, then with growing delight. She laughed softly when she tasted the sweet fruit, her eyes shining as though she had discovered a secret. "Do you always enjoy things this much?" Daniel asked, half in wonder, half in confusion. "Why should I not?" she replied. "Every taste, every sound, every sight, these are gifts. I will not waste them." Later, when night came and the artificial lights dimmed across the colony, Daniel showed her to a small guest room. He gave her blankets, explained the door controls, and said she could change anything she wished to make it comfortable. Lyra touched the bed with care, then looked at him. "Daniel," she said softly. "Thank you." He paused. "For what?" "For letting me be happy." Daniel left her room with questions filling his mind. He had not expected this. He thought he would have to comfort her, explain things slowly, give her reasons to adjust. Instead, it was she who brought warmth into the house from the very first moment. As he lay in his own bed that night, he stared at the ceiling and thought about her words. She had said she never had choice before. She had said even small freedoms felt like treasures. What kind of place had she come from? He did not know. But one thing was certain. He had not just gained a companion. He had met someone who looked at the world with a joy he could not understand, and perhaps in time he would learn why. And for the first time in many months, Daniel fell asleep with a faint smile, knowing tomorrow would not be lonely. The next morning, Daniel woke earlier than usual. Sunlight filtered through the colony dome, casting a soft golden glow across the settlement. He stretched, rubbed his eyes, and remembered the events of yesterday. His companion had arrived, Lyra, a woman from another world, smiling at everything as if life itself was a precious gift. Daniel wondered if she was awake. He quietly stepped out of his room, only to freeze in surprise. Lyra was already in the small kitchen. She stood with her back to him, carefully studying the cabinets. She held one of his cups in her hands, turning it gently as though she were afraid of breaking it. "Good morning," Daniel said. She turned quickly, her eyes shining. "Good morning. I hope I did not disturb you. I was curious about these things." She held up the cup. "It is simple, but very beautiful." Daniel chuckled softly. "That's just a mug. Nothing special." "To you," Lyra said, placing it down with care. "To me it is special because it belongs to me now. I can choose to hold it, use it, or not. That choice is wonderful." Daniel tilted his head. "You really mean that, don't you?" "Yes," she replied, smiling brightly. They shared breakfast together. Daniel made toast and eggs while Lyra asked endless questions. She wanted to know how the toaster worked, why humans cooked their food in different ways, and why bread always seemed to be everywhere. Daniel tried to answer each question, sometimes laughing at how much interest she showed in the smallest details. "You act like every little thing is new to you," Daniel said as he poured her tea. "Because it is," she replied. "Even if I have seen these objects before, I never had the right to touch them freely. Here no one stops me, that makes them new." Her words lingered in Daniel's mind long after breakfast. That afternoon, Daniel had to work on a broken power stabilizer at the colony's edge. He hesitated before leaving, unsure if Lyra would be fine staying alone. "Do you want me to stay here?" she asked when she noticed his hesitation. "Well, I thought maybe you'd be more comfortable inside," Daniel admitted. She shook her head eagerly. "No, please take me with you. I want to see how you work." So Daniel agreed. They traveled together in his small transport to the power station, where wires and machines filled the area. Daniel put on his gloves and tools, ready to begin repairs. To his surprise, Lyra crouched beside him, watching closely. She pointed at a connector. That part is misaligned. It will not carry energy evenly. Daniel looked at her in shock. You can read this system? Not completely, Lyra admitted. But my people use different machines with similar energy flows. I understand the pattern. Daniel raised his brows. He followed her suggestion, adjusted the connector, and the machine responded instantly. The system came online faster than he expected. Well, he said, impressed. Looks like you just saved me an hour of work. Lyra's eyes lit up and she clapped her hands together. Truly, I helped? You did, Daniel said honestly. Seems like you've got a good eye for this. For the rest of the afternoon, she stayed by his side. She asked questions, offered small ideas, and sometimes even found mistakes he overlooked. Daniel realized quickly that she was not just curious, she was clever. She learned fast, almost as if she had been waiting her whole life for the chance to use her mind freely. By the time they finished, Daniel felt something unusual. He was not tired. Usually, long repairs drained him, but Lyra's excitement seemed to give him energy. On the way home, she spoke about what she had learned. Machines are honest, she said thoughtfully. They do what they are built to do. No secrets, no hidden chains. I like that. Daniel glanced at her. You sound like you've thought about this a lot. She nodded. Where I grew up, nothing was honest. People said one thing but meant another. But machines, they always tell the truth. Her words carried weight, and Daniel did not press further. He sensed her past was filled with shadows, but he decided to let her share more when she was ready. In the following days, their bond grew stronger. Lyra began helping around the house, in her own way, not as a servant, but as someone eager to contribute. She organized Daniel's scattered tools, created small systems to keep parts labeled, and even repaired a broken drone he had left in storage. Daniel returned home one evening to find the drone flying neatly around the room, guided by her adjustments. You fixed it? He asked in amazement. I only followed the pattern, she said proudly. It was simple once I looked closely. Daniel laughed. Simple to you, maybe. To me, that thing was a hopeless mess. Their evenings were filled with stories. Daniel told her about Earth, about mountains, oceans, forests, and cities that touch the sky. Lyra listened with wide eyes, asking question after question. In return, she shared small pieces of her own world. Glowing trees that lit the night, songs sung in harmony by whole villages, and skies filled with shifting colors. Yet whenever Daniel asked why she had left, she grew quiet. She smiled softly and said, Because I wanted freedom. Soon others in the colony noticed them. At the market, Daniel introduced her to neighbors. Some greeted her kindly, curious about her culture. Others looked uncertain, whispering questions when they thought she could not hear. Lyra stood tall through it all, answering questions with patience. She was polite but firm, never shrinking away. One evening, as they walked back from the market, Daniel asked, Does it bother you, the way some people look at you? She shook her head. No, I do not mind. They do not know me yet. One day they will see that I am not here to harm anyone. I am here because I am happy. Her confidence surprised Daniel. Many newcomers struggled to fit in, but Lyra carried herself with quiet strength. One night after a long day, Daniel sat in the garden outside his home. The colony dome revealed the stars above, distant and endless. Lyra joined him, sitting on the grass beside him. Do you miss your home? Daniel asked gently. She looked at the stars for a long moment. Sometimes. The sky there was different. The songs of my people were beautiful. But she paused, her voice soft. Home is not always where you were born. Sometimes home is where you are finally free. Daniel turned his head toward her. And here feels like that to you? Yes, she whispered with a smile. Here with you, I feel free. Her words struck Daniel deeply. He realized that what had begun as a simple program had become something more. He had expected a quiet companion, perhaps even distance. Instead, he had found someone who looked at life with wonder, who reminded him of things he had long forgotten, like joy in small moments and gratitude for simple choices. That night, as they sat together under the stars, Daniel felt something new forming between them. Not duty, not responsibility, but trust. And maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something greater. The colony days passed quickly, and Daniel grew used to Lyra's presence in his home. She was no longer a guest who had just arrived. She was a part of his daily life. When he worked on machines, she was beside him, suggesting solutions. When he returned from errands, she greeted him with a smile that carried warmth into the quiet house. But as their bond grew, Daniel noticed something he could not ignore. Sometimes late at night when she thought he was asleep, Lyra would stand by the window and stare at the stars with a look that was not joy but sadness. Her hands would tighten around the window frame, and her eyes would shimmer as though holding back memories. Daniel respected her silence. He did not want to force her to share what hurt her. But one evening, after a long day of repairs at the colony power grid, he found her sitting quietly in the garden. The usual spark in her eyes was dim. "Lyra?" he asked softly, sitting beside her. "Are you all right?" She hesitated, then sighed. "Daniel, may I tell you something about my past?" He nodded gently. "Only if you want to. I will listen." She closed her eyes for a moment as though gathering strength. When she opened them, her voice carried both sorrow and relief. "My people live in a society where no one belongs to themselves," she began. "From the day we are born, we are assigned a role. Some are workers, some are guardians, some are caretakers. No one chooses. We are told what to do, where to go, even whom to live with." Daniel frowned slightly. "You mean no freedom at all?" "None," Lyra said firmly. "We are not taught to ask what we want. We are taught only to obey. Those who question the system are corrected. Those who resist vanish." Her words hung heavy in the night air. Daniel felt a knot in his chest as he listened. "I was assigned to serve," she continued, "not because I wanted to, but because that was my role. Every day I worked where I was told, smiled when expected, and spoke only when allowed. But inside I dreamed of something more. I wanted to know what it meant to choose, to wake up one morning and decide for myself what to do." Her hands clenched, together. "When I heard of humans, I thought it was only a story. A people who let even children choose their future, who valued freedom more than order. I did not believe it could be true. But when the program was announced, the one that allowed some of us to join human colonies, I begged to be chosen. I wanted to see if the stories were real." Daniel listened in silence. His mind struggled to imagine a life where every decision was taken away. He had grown up making choices without thinking, what to eat, what to study, what job to take. To him, choice was air. To her, it was treasure. "And when you arrived," Daniel said slowly, "you found it was real." Lyra turned to him, her eyes glistening. "Yes, you let me touch a cup. You let me decide where to sit. You let me eat food in the way I wished. To you, these are nothing. To me, they are everything." Daniel's chest tightened. He had not realized how much those small things meant to her, but Lyra's story was not finished. She looked away, her voice lowering. "Not all of my people were happy when I left. Some say humans are dangerous because we give too much freedom. They believe choice leads to chaos. They will not accept that I belong here now." Daniel felt a chill. "You think they'll come looking for you?" Lyra nodded faintly. "It is possible. They do not like when someone breaks the pattern. To them, I am not free, I am missing property." The thought unsettled Daniel. He looked at her, seeing not just joy, but the weight she carried. She had run toward freedom, but shadows from her past could still follow. The next day, Daniel went to the colony market. He noticed whispers as he passed. Two traders leaned close, speaking about an incoming ship. Another mentioned officials from an alien world. Daniel's pulse quickened. He returned home quickly, only to find Lyra already aware. "They are here," she said quietly, standing by the window again. "Representatives of my people. They will ask for me." Daniel clenched his fists. "But you don't belong to them anymore. You chose to be here." Her smile was sad but calm. "That is true for us. But for them, choice does not exist. They will not understand." Daniel felt anger rise, but he also felt determination. "Then we'll make them understand. You're not property, Lyra. You're a person. And here, in this colony, that matters." She looked at him with eyes full of gratitude, though a shadow of fear still remained. The colony grew tense as news spread. The alien officials wanted to meet with the council. People whispered about what might happen. Some feared trouble. Others argued that humanity should stand firm. One evening, Daniel and Lyra sat together, the weight of tomorrow heavy between them. "Daniel," she said softly, "I do not want you to suffer because of me." He shook his head. "Don't say that. You've given me more than you know. I was living in silence before you came. You reminded me that life is more than work, that even small moments can shine. I won't let anyone take that away." Her eyes softened, and she reached out to place her hand lightly on his. "Then whatever comes, we will face it together." The next morning, the alien officials arrived at the council hall. Their robes were long, their movements sharp, their voices carrying authority. They spoke of order, of structure, of how one of their own had gone astray. Daniel and Lyra stood together in front of the council. Lyra held her head high, though Daniel could feel her trembling slightly beside him. "This woman belongs to our society," one official declared. "She has a role, she cannot simply abandon it." Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady. "She is not a role, she is a person, and she chose to come here. In our colony, we respect choice." The officials scoffed. "Choice is dangerous. It weakens the mind, it destroys unity." But before Daniel could respond, Lyra's voice rang out clear and strong. "No, choice is not weakness. Choice is life. For the first time, I feel alive. And I will not go back to chains no matter how golden they look." The hall fell silent. Daniel looked at her with pride. She was no longer the quiet woman who arrived with only smiles. She was strong, brave enough to speak for herself. But he also knew this was only the beginning. The officials would not give up easily, and the council's decision would decide everything. That night, as the colony lights dimmed, Daniel and Lyra sat again in the garden. The stars above seemed brighter as though watching over them. "Do you regret telling them?" Daniel asked quietly. "No," Lyra said firmly. "I regret only that it took me so long to find my voice. But now, I will not be silent again." Daniel nodded, feeling the weight of what lay ahead. Shadows from her past had reached them, but he also saw light in her courage. And he knew, whatever happened next, humanity would stand beside her. The day dawned with tension in the air. The colony was unusually quiet, as if everyone sensed the importance of what was about to happen. Daniel and Lyra walked together toward the council hall, their steps in sync, hearts beating fast. Today, the council would decide whether Lyra could stay freely in the colony or whether she would be forced to return to her people. The hall was grand but practical, built of stone and metal, with a large circular table in the center where the council members sat. They were humans and a few representatives from other friendly species, all watching as Daniel and Lyra entered. The alien officials were already there, standing stiffly at the edge of the hall, their robes flowing and faces unreadable. Daniel took a deep breath. He had never spoken in front of the council before, but he felt a surge of responsibility. Lyra's freedom depended on him, but not entirely. Her own words, her courage, would also matter. The head of the council, an older woman named Mara, nodded for them to speak. "The officials claim that Lyra belongs to their society," Daniel began, his voice steady. "They say she cannot leave because she has a role, but in our colony, We value freedom. Choice is not a weakness. It is the core of what makes us human. And it is the reason Lyra should remain here. He glanced at Lyra. She was standing tall, her hands unclasped, eyes meeting his briefly. He saw her courage strengthen him. Lyra's voice broke slightly at first. Then, gathering strength, she continued, I am not property. I am not a role or an assignment. I am a person, and I have chosen to be here. I chose to come to this colony because humans respect choice, and I will not return to a life where I have none. A murmur ran through the hall. Some council members nodded in agreement, others frowned. Daniel noticed a few colonists leaning forward, listening closely. One of the alien officials spoke next, his voice cold. You cannot claim her freedom. She is ours. She has responsibilities. To abandon them is a violation of our society. Lyra stepped forward, her silver skin glinting softly under the hall lights. Responsibilities are meaningful only when I choose them. I have responsibilities here to myself, to Daniel, to the colony. But they are my choice. That is what matters. Daniel felt a rush of pride. The woman he had just begun to know was standing before powerful beings and speaking with strength he had never imagined. Outside the council hall, whispers of support began to spread. Colonists gathered, quietly showing approval by nodding, raising hands in small gestures, or holding up objects of their trade as signs of unity. Many spoke in favor of human values, the right to choose, the freedom to live as one wished. Inside, the debate continued. Some council members worried about angering the alien officials. If we grant this request, one said, we risk diplomatic tension. We cannot ignore the rules of other worlds. Daniel shook his head. This is not just a diplomatic issue. This is about life, about freedom. Without it, what makes us any different from the system they follow? Mara, the council leader, regarded him thoughtfully. You are asking us to challenge another civilization. That is serious. Yes, Daniel admitted. But some things are more important than politics. Lyra's freedom is more important than fear. If we do not stand for what is right, then our colony loses its meaning. The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of his words settling on everyone present. Then Lyra spoke again, her voice firm. I am capable of speaking for myself. I am capable of making choices. I ask you to see me as a person, not as property. Her courage was undeniable. Even the alien officials paused, clearly unprepared for such defiance. They had expected fear, obedience, or at least hesitation. Instead, they faced someone who would not back down. Daniel and Lyra were called to sit in a separate chamber while the council deliberated. The room was tense, but Lyra leaned back, her hands folded calmly. You were amazing in there, Daniel said quietly. I knew you were brave, but I did not expect that, she smiled softly. I only said what I have always felt. I have waited my whole life for this chance. Today I will not be silent. Daniel nodded. And whatever happens, we face it. Together. She reached out and took his hand. Together. Minutes turned into hours as the council debated. Some members argued that supporting Lyra's freedom would inspire hope for others. Not just humans, but also alien visitors who sought independence. Others worried about setting a precedent that might anger the alien society she came from. Finally, Mara spoke. We have listened to all arguments, considered the evidence, and weighed the principles of our colony. Freedom, choice, and the respect for life are not negotiable here. Lyra is free to remain. She has chosen this life, and we recognize her right to make that choice. Relief washed over Daniel. Lyra's eyes sparkled with tears of joy. She rose and bowed to the council, her voice clear and steady. Thank you, she said. Thank you for letting me live as myself. I will honor this freedom, not just for me, but for all who may come after. The alien officials looked stunned. Their expectations had been overturned. They said nothing, merely retreating in silence as if weighing the power of this colony's values against their own. The news spread quickly through the colony. Colonists cheered quietly, respecting the gravity of the moment, but celebrating the victory of human principles. Daniel and Lyra walked through the streets hand in hand, receiving smiles and nods from neighbors who had witnessed their courage. "You were incredible," Daniel said again. "I did my part, but you changed everything." Lyra shook her head. "No, Daniel, you changed everything too. You treated me like a person from the very beginning. You showed me what kindness and choice mean. Together, we made them listen." They returned home as the stars began to glow across the dome. The night felt calm, almost magical. For the first time since her arrival, Lyra laughed freely, her voice echoing softly in the quiet garden. Daniel realized that the colony had not only protected her freedom but also reaffirmed something important. Humanity's strength was not in weapons or power, but in its values, in the belief that every individual deserved choice, respect, and dignity. That night, Daniel and Lyra sat outside, looking up at the stars. The vast galaxy stretched above them, filled with possibilities. "Do you think they will return?" Daniel asked cautiously. Lyra shook her head. "Perhaps, but they will not take me. Not now. I know my rights. I know my voice. And I have allies here who understand what freedom means." Daniel smiled. "Good. I want you to be happy, not just safe." "I am happy," Lyra said softly, leaning against his shoulder. "More than I ever imagined I could be. Not because you saved me, but because I can choose to be here with you as myself." Daniel's heart swelled. He had never thought of himself as a hero. Yet in this moment he realized that together, they had stood for something bigger than themselves. They had shown that humanity's values, freedom, choice, and courage, could protect even those who came from worlds where such things were unknown. For the first time in many nights, Daniel did not feel alone. And Lyra, with her bright smile and sparkling eyes, was no longer someone he needed to protect from sadness. She had become his partner in life, in courage, and in joy. The future was uncertain, and there would be challenges ahead. But they were ready. Together, they had faced the shadows of her past, stood up to powerful forces, and proved that freedom could shine even in the darkest corners. And above them, the stars glimmered like silent witnesses to a new beginning, one built not on fear but on hope, courage, and the simple yet extraordinary power of choice. The morning air was cool as Daniel and Lyra stepped outside. The colony was alive with the gentle hum of activity, but there was a sense of calm now, a calm that came after the storm. Yesterday's council decision had set things in motion. Lyra was officially recognized as free, no longer a companion to be controlled, but a person with rights and choices. Daniel watched her closely. She moved with ease, yet there was a quiet tension in her shoulders. Today, she would make the most important choice of her life, not by law but by her own heart. "Are you ready?" he asked softly, his hand brushing against hers. Lyra smiled, a serene, glowing smile. "I have been ready for a long time," she said, "but it feels different now, knowing it is truly up to me." Daniel nodded. "Whatever you choose, I will respect it. I only want you to be happy." Her eyes glimmered, reflecting the morning sunlight as they walked to the colony's central plaza. Officials, colonists, and even some visitors gathered, curious to witness the final steps of Lyra's journey. There was no hostility now, only quiet expectation. The head counselor, Mara, approached them. "Lyra," she said kindly, "the council has recognized your freedom. You are not bound by the rules of your people here. This is your choice. Do you wish to remain in our colony, or do you wish to leave?" Lyra took a deep breath. She looked at Daniel, who gave her a small, encouraging nod. Then she faced the crowd, her silver skin glowing faintly in the sun, her voice clear and unwavering. "I wish to stay," she said, "not because I must, but because I want to. I have found a life where I am free, where I can make choices, and where I am treated as a person. This is where I belong." A ripple of approval went through the crowd. Colonists clapped quietly, some wiping tears from their eyes. Daniel felt a surge of pride, joy, and relief all at once. Mara smiled at Lyra. "Then it is settled. You are free to live as you choose, and we will support you in your new life." The alien officials stood silently. Their expressions were unreadable, but the tension in their posture eased. They had come expecting to claim her, yet now she had made a choice that no law or rule could override. They turned and left quietly, leaving the colony in peace. That evening, Daniel and Lyra returned home. The streets of the colony were calm, bathed in the soft glow of lamps. Lyra walked slowly, taking in the sights, the sounds, and the freedom that surrounded her. For years, she had lived under control, never knowing the joy of simple choices. Now each step she took was hers to decide, each breath hers to enjoy. "I never thought it would feel like this," Lyra whispered as they reached Daniel's home. "I knew freedom was important, but I did not know it could feel this full, this real." Daniel opened the door and gestured for her to enter first. "Then don't think about the past right now," he said gently. "Focus on today and the life you've chosen." Inside, the house felt warmer than usual. Lyra explored every corner not because she needed to, but because she wanted to. She touched the walls, smiled at the plants, and even hummed softly. As she walked through the rooms, Daniel watched her quietly, his heart swelling. "You've really made this place your own," he said. "I think I have," she said, turning to him with a bright smile. "And it feels right." Days turned into weeks, and Lyra settled into her new life. She and Daniel worked together, not just on machines, but on ideas, small inventions, and projects that helped the colony. She shared stories of her people, teaching the children about cultures beyond their stars. She laughed, danced, and sometimes even sang softly at night, filling the home with joy. Daniel realized that her happiness was not just a gift to her, it was a gift to him too. He had expected a companion to keep him company, but what he found was much more. Someone who inspired him, challenged him, and brought light into his life in ways he had never imagined. One afternoon, they sat in the garden, the colony's soft breeze brushing against their faces. "Daniel," Lyra said thoughtfully, "I want you to know something. I am not here because I am lonely. I am here because I choose to be, and I want to be with you, not out of duty, but because I truly want it." Daniel took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I feel the same way, Lyra. I don't need you to stay, but I am grateful you choose to." Her eyes shone. "Then we are partners, truly." "Yes," Daniel said, smiling. "Partners." The colony soon recognized their bond as something special. People admired Lyra's courage, her ability to embrace life fully, and the way Daniel respected her choices. Together they became symbols of human values, kindness, respect, and the power of freedom. Even other aliens visiting the colony took notice. Some asked her questions, wanting to learn how a being from their worlds could thrive in a human society. Lyra answered with patience and joy, sharing her story without bitterness, teaching them that choice and happiness were worth fighting for. Daniel watched her, amazed at her strength. The woman who had arrived timidly, unsure and careful, was now radiant, confident, and free. And he realized that this was the true wonder of humanity. Not machines, not colonies, but the ability to let others live as they wished, to honor freedom, and to respect the choices of all beings. One evening, as the colony lights twinkled below the dome, Daniel and Lyra stood on the balcony of their home. The stars above seemed closer tonight, sparkling with possibilities. "Do you ever miss your old home?" Daniel asked softly. "Sometimes," Lyra admitted. "But that is in the past. I have a new home now. A home where I am free, where I am happy, and where I can share life with someone I trust." Daniel smiled. "Then you are truly home." "Yes," she said, leaning against him. I am truly home. They stood together, hand in hand, looking out at the stars. There were challenges, ahead of course. Life was never without difficulties, but they had faced the hardest test of all, the choice to be free and to live as themselves. They had won, together. And in that victory they found something even greater than freedom, hope, trust, and the quiet joy of knowing that they had chosen each other willingly. The night passed peacefully. Daniel and Lyra spoke softly, planned projects, laughed at small jokes, and simply enjoyed the presence of each other. For the first time, Daniel understood what happiness truly meant. It was not just about safety or comfort, but about sharing life with someone who chose to be by your side. In the weeks that followed, their home became a place of learning, laughter, and invention. Colonists came to visit, curious about the alien woman who had so bravely spoken for her freedom. Children listened to her stories and asked questions about distant worlds. Daniel and Lyra worked together to build small machines, sometimes combining human and alien technology in ways that amazed everyone. Life moved forward, filled with challenges and triumphs, but always with freedom at its core. And every day, Daniel marveled at how a simple choice, to respect another being, to give them freedom, could change everything. As the final scene of their story unfolded, Daniel and Lyra stood together once more under the open sky. The galaxy stretched infinitely before them, full of stars, worlds, and possibilities. They did not know what the future held, but they knew this. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side, free, happy, and stronger for the choices they had made. And for Daniel, who had only hoped for a companion, life had given him something far greater, a partner, a friend, and a reminder that humanity's greatest strength lay not in power, but in kindness, courage, and the respect for freedom. Together they smiled at the stars, ready to embrace whatever adventure lay ahead, knowing that happiness, true happiness, was born from choice, trust, and love freely given.